heavy, brother. But I dig it.
What happens when a team enters zombie-filled Las Vegas to steal $200 million before the city is destroyed? Packed with insane action, shocking twists, and hidden facts you probably missed. Stay till the end. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join Revives Vola for more awesome movie reviews and facts. Army of the Dead is a 2021 American post-apocalyptic zombie heist movie directed by Zack Snyder. He also co-wrote the script with Shay Hatten and Joby Harold, based on a story he came up with himself. The movie has a star-packed cast including Dave Bautista, Ella Purnell, Omari Hardwick, Ana de la Reguera, Theo Rossi, Matthias Schweighöfer, Nora Arnezeder, Hiroyuki Sanada, Tig Notaro, Raul Castillo, Huma Qureshi, and Garrett Dillahunt. The story follows a team of mercenaries who take on a dangerous mission to rob a casino in Las Vegas while the city is completely overrun by zombies. Zack Snyder first came up with the idea for Army of the Dead as a spiritual follow up to his 2004 movie Dawn of the Dead. The project originally started at Warner Brothers Pictures and was announced back in 2007 with Matthias van Heiningen Jr. set to direct, but the movie got stuck in development for years and never moved forward. In 2019, Netflix picked up the project and finally brought it back to life. The movie had a production budget of around 70 $90 million, and Snyder even worked as the cinematographer himself. Most of the filming happened in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Atlantic City, New Jersey during the middle of 2019. Later, in September 2020, the movie had to go through reshoots after actor Chris D'Elia was removed because of multiple sexual misconduct allegations. Actress Tig Notaro took over his role, and her scenes were added using green screen technology, and CGI Army of the Dead had a limited theatrical release in the United States on May 14, 2021, where it played in select theaters for 1 week before making its worldwide debut on Netflix on May 21, 2021. The movie received mixed reviews from critics. Many people enjoyed its action, zombie scenes, and sense of humor, while others felt the story was too long and the plot could have been better. Even with the mixed reviews, the movie became very popular with audiences and won the Oscars Fan Favorite Award at the 94th Academy Awards. It also earned around $1 million at the box office during its limited theater run. Because of its success, the movie expanded into its own franchise with the prequel Army of Thieves, and a direct sequel called Planet of the Dead is currently in development. A US military convoy is transporting a top secret cargo from Area 51 when it crashes into a car on a highway outside Las Vegas. The cargo turns out to be a powerful zombie who breaks free and quickly kills and infects several soldiers. It then makes its way into Las Vegas, where the infection spreads like wildfire, turning most of the city's population into zombies. The military tries to stop the outbreak, but the mission fails, forcing the government to seal off and quarantine the entire city. 6 years later, wealthy casino owner Bly Tanaka Hiroyuki Sanada and his business partner Martin Garrett Dillahunt meet with former mercenary Scott Ward, Dave Bautista. Tanaka offers Scott a dangerous job: break into his abandoned casino in zombie filled Las Vegas and recover $200 million locked inside the vault before the military wipes out the city with a tactical nuclear strike. In return, Scott will earn $50 million. Having already lost everything, including his daughter, who was infected and had to be put down by him, Scott accepts the mission because he feels he has nothing left to lose. Scott starts putting together his old crew. He recruits his longtime friends Maria Cruz, Ana de la Reguera, and Vanderoy, Omari Hardwick, skilled helicopter pilot Marianne Peters, Tig Notaro, talented German safecracker Ludwig Dieter, Matthias Schweighöfer, and expert sharpshooter Mikey Guzman. Raul Castillo, who brings his trusted partner Chambers, Samantha Wynn. Martin joins the team as well, claiming he'll help them get into the casino safely. Scott quietly promises Maria and Vanderohe $15 million each because they have been through so much together since their military days. Peters agrees to fly the helicopters for $2 million. Mikey signs on for $500,000, while Dieter accepts $250,000. Scott's estranged daughter, Kate, Ella Purnell, who works at a refugee quarantine camp, introduces the team to Lily, Nora Anezeder, a smuggler who knows Las Vegas better than anyone. Lily also brings along Bert Cummings, Theo Rossi, an abusive security guard from the camp, who agrees to join for just $20,000. Scott offers Kate his entire $15 million share if she helps with the mission. But when Kate finds out her friend Geeta Huma Qureshi entered Las Vegas and never came back, she insists on joining the team despite Scott's objections. Geeta had entered the city hoping to find just enough money to escape the refugee camp with her children and start a better life. As the team enters Las Vegas, they are attacked by a terrifying zombie tiger. After surviving the encounter, Lily explains that the city is controlled by highly intelligent zombies called the Alphas. She says they can pass safely if they offer a human sacrifice. The Alpha Queen, Athena Parampal, accepts Cummings as the sacrifice and takes him to the Olympus casino, where Alpha leader Zeus, Richard Cetron, infects him, turning him into one of their own. Lily then leads everyone through a building packed with sleeping regular zombies. These zombies stay asleep unless bright light shines directly into their eyes. Scott carefully creates a safe path using glow sticks so the team can quietly walk through. Chambers begins to suspect Martin has a hidden agenda, but Martin secretly pushes her off the safe path. She accidentally wakes the sleeping zombies, who quickly surround and bite her. Realizing she won't survive, Mikey shoots the gas tank on her back, causing a huge explosion that kills Chambers along with a massive group of zombies. The team finally reaches Bly Tanaka's casino. While looking around, Dieter discovers another set of vault blueprints, suggesting that Tanaka had already sent previous teams into the city before them. Martin claims he knows nothing about it. Scott and Kate restore the building's electricity. Peters gets a helicopter ready on the rooftop, and Dieter begins the difficult job of cracking the massive vault. At the same time, Gita is revealed to still be alive but is being held prisoner by Zeus. Instead of killing every human immediately, Zeus keeps them alive so he can feed on them later whenever he wants. Martin and Lily stay outside, pretending to stand guard, but they secretly lure the Alpha Queen into the open. Martin suddenly cuts off her head and takes it with him. It turns out Lily had been secretly working with Martin and Tanaka all along. Although she believed Martin only wanted a sample of the Queen's blood, Martin finally reveals the real plan. Tanaka wants the Queen's head because its DNA could help create an army of intelligent zombies that could be sold to the government for far more money than what's inside the casino vault. Zeus soon discovers the Queen's body and carries her back to the Olympus casino. It is then revealed that she was pregnant with a zombie baby. Furious over her death and the loss of his unborn child, Zeus orders every alpha zombie to attack the casino. At the same time, a news report announces that the military has moved the nuclear strike up, leaving the team with only about 90 minutes before the bomb drops. Just as Dieter finally opens the vault, Scott realizes Kate has secretly left to search for Gita. Scott and Maria go after her, but before they can find her, the alpha zombies attack and brutally kill Maria. Martin locks the rest of the team inside the vault basement and admits that Bly Tanaka never really cared about the money. The Queen's head is the true prize because it could be used to build a powerful zombie army for the government and is worth far more than the cash. But as Martin leaves the building, he discovers Lily has stolen the Queen's head. Before he can stop her, the zombie tiger attacks him and tears him apart. Meanwhile, Zeus breaks into the vault basement and easily defeats Vandero in a brutal fight. Knowing someone has to survive, Dieter sacrifices himself by locking Zeus behind the vault door so Vanderohe can escape safely with the money. Scott, Lily, and Mikey fight their way into the casino lobby, but they are surrounded by a huge zombie horde. Mikey chooses to stay behind and detonates all of his grenades, killing countless zombies and sacrificing himself in the process. The explosion also destroys the money he was carrying. Scott and Lily continue toward the rooftop where Peters is waiting with the helicopter. Zeez escapes from the basement and chases them to the roof. Lily distracts him by holding up the Queen's head, giving Scott and Peters enough time to escape. Zeus fatally stabs Lily, but before she dies, she throws the Queen's head off the rooftop destroying it completely. Peters flies Scott back toward the Olympus casino so he can rescue Kate. Inside the casino, Kate finds Gita and kills the now zombified Cummings. Zeus catches up with them and attacks as they climb aboard Peters' helicopter. During the fight, Scott accidentally shoots Peters, causing the helicopter to spin wildly out of control. Zeus overpowers Scott and bites him, infecting him with the zombie virus. Just as the nuclear bomb explodes over Las Vegas, the bright flash distracts Zeus for a split second, allowing Scott to kill him. The blast wave from the explosion crashes the helicopter, killing Peters and Gita. Kate survives the crash and finds her badly injured father. Knowing he is about to turn into a zombie, Scott gives Kate the remaining money and tells her to build a better future. With tears in her eyes, Kate says goodbye and shoots her father before he can transform. Moments later, a rescue helicopter arrives to save her. Meanwhile, Vanderoy survives by staying locked inside the casino vault during the nuclear blast. After the danger passes, he climbs out with the remaining money and rents a private plane to fly to Mexico City. But during the flight, he discovers a zombie bite on his arm. Realizing the nightmare is far from over, casting Dave Bautista as Scott Ward Dave Bautista was not the original choice for the lead role of Scott Ward in Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. The character was initially conceived with actor Scott Glenn in mind, which is why the character shares the first name Scott. Early development of the project, which had roots going back years after Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake, positioned Bautista for the supporting role of Vanderohe, the skilled zombie killing machine who becomes a key member of the Heist team. Snyder and Bautista had been discussing potential collaborations for years. The two shared a mutual admiration rooted in a personal connection. Snyder described Bautista as a man's man who trained hard and connected with the director's energy and aesthetic. When casting approached for the Netflix production, Snyder reconsidered. He determined that Bautista's physical presence, combined with a growing ability to convey vulnerability and emotional depth, made him ideal for the central figure of Scott Ward, a former zombie war hero reduced to flipping burgers, estranged from his daughter, and seeking a form of redemption through a high stakes heist. Snyder personally called Bautista to offer the lead. Bautista initially hesitated. At that stage in his career, after establishing himself as Drax in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, he was actively seeking dramatic roles that would showcase range beyond action hero tropes. He had a chip on his shoulder about purely physical parts and first declined the project. After reading the script, Bautista changed his mind. He recognized that the zombie apocalypse and casino heist served as backdrop to a deeper father-daughter redemption story between Scott and Kate. He requested freedom to enrich the character's emotional layers, making Scott more relatable, human, and less invincible. Snyder welcomed the collaboration. Bautista has described the process as unusually free for a large scale production. Snyder would adjust shots and pick up intimate moments, including facial expressions during key sequences, such as the traumatic killing of Scott's infected wife Laura. The actor infused the role with personal interpretation, emphasizing internal conflict and quiet regret, alongside the expected physical capability. Accepting the part required Bautista to turn down a role in James Gunn's A Suicide Squad. The decision was emotionally difficult. Gunn had been instrumental in Bautista's career trajectory, and the two shared a strong working relationship. Bautista contacted Gunn to explain that the combination of a lead role, collaboration with Snyder, a relationship with Netflix, and stronger financial terms made Army of the Dead the professionally smarter choice. Gunn was understanding. Bautista has declined to specify which Suicide Squad character had been written for him out of respect for the actor who ultimately played it. The choice positioned Bautista as the anchor of a large ensemble and marked a significant step in his transition toward more layered leading man work. On set, Bautista's physical preparation aligned with the film's intense action demands. He trained rigorously alongside co stars, contributing to the ensemble's cohesion. His performance balances stoic leadership with moments of paternal failure and tentative reconnection, forming the emotional core around which the rest of the cast orbits. Ella Purnell as Kate Ward. Ella Purnell was cast as Kate Ward. Scott's estranged daughter, who works at a quarantine camp and insists on joining the mission after learning that a friend, Geeta, has gone missing inside the zone. Purnell, known previously for roles in Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, Ordeal by Innocence, and Belgravia, was not an obvious choice for a high octane zombie action film. She has openly stated that she avoids horror, gore, and scary movies, and initially held strong preconceptions against the project. Her agent sent the material. The early draft contained political undertones that interested her, and the father daughter relationship was written with care. A meeting with Snyder sealed the decision. She described him as passionate, energetic, weird, and creative, qualities that overcame her genre reluctance. Subsequent script revisions only improved the material in her view. Collaboration continued throughout production. Purnell and Snyder discussed the formative trauma that shapes Kate, witnessing her mother's infection and death, and how it colors her guarded relationship with Scott. Improvisation was encouraged. There was no rigid time is money pressure. The pair explored emotional beats that reveal Kate's defenses crumbling under life or death pressure. Physical preparation proved challenging. Purnell has described herself as lacking upper body strength and coordination. She trained in the gym and took boxing lessons with her stepfather, then worked with ex military advisors who taught firearms handling, tactical movement, and team coordination. She struggled with form, occasionally catching herself making gun hands with her free hand while running or looking awkward while trying to appear cool. Despite the difficulties, the training grounded her performance as a determined young woman capable of holding her own amid professional mercenaries. Purnell's casting brought a younger, more grounded emotional counterpoint to Bautista's weathered presence. The chemistry between the two actors sells the fractured family dynamic that gives the high stakes beyond money. Her work emphasizes resilience and moral clarity rather than pure action hero competence, expanding the film's tonal range. Omari Hardwick as Van der Rohe. Omari Hardwick took the role of Van der Rohe after it was redirected from Bautista. Hardwick, already established through Power, Kick-Ass, and other credits, brought intensity and physicality suited to a character defined as a near unstoppable zombie killing specialist. The part required substantial physical transformation. Hardwick trained extensively in the gym, building muscle and conditioning that other cast members, including Tig Notaro, later remarked upon as an everyday presence on set. Hardwick's casting contributed to the ensemble's diversity and tonal balance. Vandero is stoic, professional, and lethal, providing a foil to more personality driven characters such as the influencer Mikey Guzman or the eccentric safecracker Dieter. On set, Hardwick bonded with Bautista through shared training regimens. The two actors' physical commitment helped establish the practical, high stakes texture of the action sequences. Hardwick's performance emphasizes quiet competence and underlying humanity, particularly in sequences that test the team's survival and loyalty. Ana de la Reguera as Maria Cruz. Ana de la Reguera was cast as Maria Cruz, Scott's longtime friend and an ace mechanic who wields a Gatling gun with lethal efficiency. The offer came unexpectedly. While finishing work on her Mexican comedy series Ana, her agent informed her that Zack Snyder wanted her for the film. She initially wondered whether there had been a mix up with another director of the same name. There was none. Snyder did not require an audition. He specifically wanted her. Riguera flew to set the day after wrapping her series. The role represented a career turning point. Earlier in her career, casting directors had praised her but cited concerns about her accent. Army of the Dead allowed her to play a fully realized action character without those limitations. She trained for the physical demands and delivered a performance that balances toughness with loyalty and history with Scott. Riguera was one of the few actors who reshot scenes with Tig Notaro after the latter's digital insertion. She originally filmed certain moments opposite Chris D'Elia. Those required adjustment for eye lines and physical presence once. Notaro took over. Her willingness to return for technical reshoots underscored the collaborative spirit Snyder fostered. Reguera's casting also strengthened the film's international and multicultural texture, reflecting the diverse makeup of the mercenary team. Theo Rossi as Bert Cummings. Theo Rossi was cast as Bert Cummings, a slimy, abusive security guard from the quarantine camp who is reluctantly brought into the mission. Rossi, known for Sons of Anarchy, and later Emily the Criminal, brought a volatile, unlikable energy that contrasts with the more heroic or quirky members of the crew. The character functions as both comic relief of a dark variety and a sacrificial element within the story's mythology of the alpha zombies. Rossi's casting added grit and moral ambiguity to the ensemble, preventing the team from feeling uniformly heroic. Matthias Schweighofer as Ludwig Dieter. Matthias Schweighofer was cast as Ludwig Dieter, often simply Dieter, the brilliant German safecracker whose expertise is essential to opening the casino vault. Schweighofer, a major star in German cinema and television, brought a light, almost comedic eccentricity that lightens the film's heavier action and emotional beats. His performance emphasizes enthusiasm, technical precision, and an outsider's perspective on the American mercenary culture around him. The casting choice also set up narrative continuity for the prequel Army of Thieves, which Schweighöfer directed and in which he reprises the role. His presence expands the film's international flavor and provides a character whose primary skill is intellectual rather than purely physical or combat oriented. Nora Arnezeder as Lily. The coyote Nora Arnezeder was cast as Lily, known as the Coyote, a smuggler who knows the routes into and out of the quarantine city and who recruits Bert Cummings. Arnezeder, a French actress with credits including Paris 36, brought a grounded, street smart intensity. The character serves as both guide and moral complication. She understands the rules of the alpha zombies and the cost of passage. Her casting added another layer of international presence and a female character defined by competence, cynicism, and survival knowledge rather than traditional damsel or sidekick tropes. Hiroyuki Sanada as Bly Tanaka. Hiroyuki Sanada was cast as Bly Tanaka, the casino owner who proposes the heist and offers the substantial payout. Sanada, a veteran of Japanese cinema, The Twilight Samurai, and international films, The Wolverine, Westworld, brought quiet authority and understated menace. The role is largely confined to the framing sections of the story, yet Sanada's gravitas establishes the high financial stakes and the moral ambiguity of the employer. His casting continues Snyder's pattern of assembling performers with distinctive screen presence who can convey character efficiently. Garrett Dillahunt as Martin. Garrett Dillahunt was cast as Martin, Tanaka's head of security and the man who helps recruit Scott. Dillahunt, known for Deadwood, 12 Years a Slave, and Raising Hope, specialize in roles that mix competence with moral slipperiness. His performance adds another layer of institutional distrust to the narrative. The character's presence on the mission raises questions of loyalty and hidden agendas, enriching the ensemble dynamic. Tig Notaro as Marianne Peters. The casting of Tig Notaro as helicopter pilot, Marianne Peters is one of the most documented and unusual aspects of the production. Originally, the role belonged to comedian Chris D'Elia. After allegations of sexual misconduct against D'Elia surfaced in 2020, Snyder made the decision to digitally remove him and recast the part. Notaro was suggested by the casting department. Snyder's immediate reaction was affirmative. He felt she was the right fit. Because principal photography had long since wrapped and the COVID 19 pandemic made large scale reshoots impractical, Notaro filmed nearly all of her material against green screens, often without other actors present. The visual effects team then composited her into existing footage, adjusting for eye lines, lighting, and physical interactions. The process was described by Snyder as more difficult than anticipated. Notaro herself was initially baffled by the offer and uncertain whether the technical challenge was feasible given the differences between her and Dahlia's physicality and comedic style. Snyder instructed her to play the character as herself rather than attempt to replicate the previous performance. Preparation for Notaro included firearm training conducted over Zoom while her children played in the next room. She has spoken about the surreal experience of leaving strict lockdown to join a major action production under rigorous health protocols. Her dry, deadpan delivery became a distinctive element of the finished film, providing sardonic commentary amid the chaos. The digital replacement stands as a notable example of post production problem solving driven by ethical considerations rather than creative preference alone. Dave Bautista never met Notaro on set, despite sharing multiple scenes in the final cut. Raul Castillo as Mikey Guzman. Raul Castillo was cast as Mikey Guzman, a go for broke influencer and sharpshooter, who joins the team with his partner Chambers. Castillo, known for Vida and other independent and television work, brought charisma and a contemporary social media edge. The character's live streaming impulses and bravado contrast with the more professional mercenaries, reflecting a younger generation's relationship to risk and spectacle. His casting added cultural specificity and a sense of modern irreverence to the ensemble. Samantha Wynn as Chambers. Samantha Wynn, also credited as Samantha Joe, was cast as Chambers, Mikey's ride or die partner and a capable fighter. Wynn, a stunt performer and actress with credits including Wonder Woman, brought authentic physicality. Her background in martial arts and stunt work allowed the character to participate convincingly in the film's elaborate action set pieces. The pairing of Castillo and Wynn created a self contained unit within the larger team, emphasizing loyalty and complementary skills. Huma Qureshi as Geeta. Huma Qureshi was cast as Geeta, the missing mother whose presence inside the quarantine zone motivates Kate to join the mission. Qureshi, an established Indian actress known for Gangs of Wasipur, brought emotional weight to a role that is more narrative catalyst than constant screen presence. Her casting further diversified the ensemble and grounded the personal stakes for Kate in a specific human connection rather than abstract heroism. Supporting and ensemble casting choices beyond the principal players, Snyder assembled a large supporting cast that populated the quarantine camps, the ruined Las Vegas streets, and the zombie ranks. Richard Cetron played Zeus, the Alpha leader. Athena Perample portrayed the Alpha Queen. Michael Cassidy appeared as Sergeant Kelly. Steve Corona and Chelsea Edmondson played the ill fated groom and bride. Numerous performers filled roles as zombies, both shamblers and alphas, refugees, news anchors, partygoers, and incidental figures. Some of these appearances carried meta or cultural resonance. Political figures, Donna Brazil and Sean Spicer, appeared as pundits. Colby Lemo played Laura Ward, Scott's wife, in the critical early trauma sequence. The breadth of the supporting cast reflects the film's world building ambitions. Snyder and the casting team populated a post outbreak Las Vegas that feels lived in and stratified. Refugees, opportunistic guards, residual high rollers, and the evolved alpha hierarchy. Many of the zombie performers were required to execute specific physicality, distinguishing the slower shamblers from the faster, more intelligent alphas. Voice work for zombie vocals was provided by performers including Gary A. Hecker, Amanda Troop, and John Olson. Overall casting philosophy and diversity, Zack Snyder has described the casting process as a mixture of pre existing character concepts and subsequent customization once actors were attached. Characters were written first. Performers were then selected, and in some cases, the roles adjusted to their strengths. The resulting ensemble is notably diverse in ethnicity, nationality, age, body type, and professional background. It includes Mexican, Japanese, German, French, Indian, and American actors of varied heritage, action veterans and dramatic specialists, comedians and stunt performers, established stars, and relative newcomers to large scale Hollywood productions. Snyder has noted that the Scott character was originally imagined older than Bautista, yet, the actor's combination of physical power and emotional openness made the father daughter relationship credible. Similar adjustments occurred across the board. The diversity was not presented as a checklist exercise, but as an organic reflection of a contemporary American and international response to crisis. The mercenary team looks and sounds like a cross section of people who might actually be assembled for such a desperate job rather than a uniform collection of action archetypes. Training was a shared experience that further unified the cast. Multiple actors have spoken about firearms instruction, tactical movement, and physical conditioning. The regime created camaraderie even as individual characters retained distinct personalities. Snyder's collaborative directing style, open to improvisation, willing to capture unscripted emotional moments, and flexible with technical solutions such as the Notaro insertion, encouraged performers to claim ownership of their roles. Production context influencing casting decisions. The project's long development history shaped casting. After years of false starts and changes in potential directors, Netflix's involvement allowed Snyder to realize a version close to his original vision. The large budget and streaming platforms' appetite for ambitious genre filmmaking supported an expansive ensemble rather than a minimalist cast. The pandemic era post production phase forced the unusual digital replacement of one major role, demonstrating both the constraints and the creative workarounds available to a well resourced production. Bautista's decision to prioritize the film over the Suicide Squad illustrates how individual career calculation intersected with ensemble needs. Notaro's late entry shows how external events can rewrite a cast list after principal photography. The willingness of actors such as Ana de la Reguera to return for technical reshoots highlights the practical cooperation required to maintain continuity under unusual circumstances. Character archetypes and performance styles. The casting deliberately mixed performance styles. Bautista and Hardwick supplied grounded physical intensity. Purnell and Qureshi provided emotional and relational depth. Schwighofer and Notaro contributed dry or eccentric humor. Castillo and Wynn embodied youthful bravado and loyalty. Arnezeder, Rossi, and Dillahunt occupied the more morally gray or transactional spaces. Sanada anchored the corporate antagonist side with restrained authority. This range prevented the film from settling into a single tone and allowed individual characters to stand out within crowded group sequences. Physical differentiation was equally important. The film's action requires performers who can credibly handle weapons, move through complex environments, and sell the physical toll of combat with evolved zombies. Casting stunt experienced actors such as Samantha Wynn and physically transformative performers such as Hardwick supported the practical effects and choreography. At the same time, actors without extensive action backgrounds were given sufficient training and support to meet the demands without appearing out of place. Legacy of the casting choices. Within the franchise, several casting decisions carried implications beyond the single film. Schweighöfer's Dieter became the protagonist of the prequel Army of Thieves, expanding the character's backstory and demonstrating the value of investing in distinctive supporting players. The overall ensemble approach established a template for a potential shared universe of stories set in the same outbreak world. The diversity of the cast also positioned the film within broader conversations about representation in large scale genre cinema, particularly in the zombie subgenre, historically dominated by more homogeneous ensembles. The technical achievement of integrating Notaro post facto became a talking point that underscored both the ethical decision making and the visual effects sophistication of the production. Bautista's lead performance further cemented his status as a viable dramatic action lead capable of carrying both spectacle and quieter emotional material. Detailed contributions of key supporting performers. Richard Cetroni's Zeus required a distinctive physical presence to convey the Alpha hierarchy's intelligence and threat. The Alpha Queen, played by Athena Prampel, needed to communicate power and otherness within limited screen time. Performers in the refugee and camp sequences populated a world of desperation and opportunistic authority. Background players in the ruined casino and street sequences helped sell the scale of the outbreak and the residual traces of pre apocalypse excess. Showgirls, Elvis impersonators, high rollers, and partygoers now transformed or scavenged, voice work, and specialized zombie performances added another layer. The distinction between shamblers and alphas demanded different movement vocabularies, which the casting and movement coaches developed with the performers. These choices reinforce the film's central premise that the outbreak had produced a more complex and hierarchical undead society rather than a uniform mass of mindless threats. Collaborative dynamics on set. Actors have described Snyder's set as energetic and open. Training sessions doubled as bonding opportunities. Shared physical challenges created camaraderie that translated into on screen team chemistry. Even performers who filmed separately, such as Notaro, were integrated through careful post production and the cooperative spirit of those who return for pickups. The result is an ensemble that feels functional as a unit, even while individual personalities remain sharply differentiated. Bautista's leadership, both on and off camera, helped set a tone of seriousness mixed with enjoyment of the absurd premise. Mercenaries fighting zombies among slot machines and casino floors. Hardwick's disciplined gym presence inspired others. Purnell's willingness to push through physical discomfort modeled commitment. Rigira's rapid transition from her own series to the Snyder set demonstrated professional adaptability. Schweighöfer's enthusiasm for the safecracking sequences and subsequent prequel work showed investment beyond a single paycheck role, cultural and international dimensions. The inclusion of actors from multiple countries and cultural backgrounds was not incidental. Las Vegas itself is an international destination. A story about its fall and a multinational response to its quarantine naturally supports a multinational cast. Sanada's Tanaka, Schweighöfer's Dieter, Arnezeda's Lily, Qureshi's Geta, and De La Reguera's Cruz each bring linguistic and cultural textures that enrich the dialogue and character interactions. English remains the dominant language, yet the accents and backgrounds prevent the world from feeling narrowly American. This approach also reflects contemporary industry realities. Streaming platforms reach global audiences. Casts that look and sound global increase accessibility and identification for international viewers. Snyder's choices aligned commercial pragmatism with artistic preference for distinctive performers. Practical considerations in casting action. Ensembles, large scale action films require careful balancing of star power, supporting talent, stunt capability, and budget. Bautista provided marquee recognition from the Marvel Universe while still being available for a Netflix production. Established television and independent film actors such as Hardwick, Castillo, Rossi, and Dillahunt brought reliability and range without commanding the same fees as top theatrical stars. Specialized performers handled the more extreme physical demands. The strategy produced a cost effective yet high quality ensemble capable of carrying both the spectacle and the character driven sequences. The late replacement of one role demonstrated contingency planning. Visual effects pipelines that could support full digital insertion of a new performer into complex multi camera sequences were already in place for the film's extensive CGI and practical effects hybrid approach. The decision to prioritize ethical concerns over the inconvenience of reshoots set a precedent for similar situations in the industry. Emotional and thematic alignment of performers beyond technical competence. The casting succeeded because the actors' natural energies aligned with the thematic needs of their characters. Bautista's capacity for quiet regret suited a man haunted by past failures. Purnell's combination of steel and vulnerability matched a daughter forced to confront both zombies and unresolved family trauma. Hardwick's intensity fit a specialist who has made killing an almost monastic practice. Notaro's dry wit provided necessary relief without undercutting the stakes. Schweighofer's slight otherness as a European outsider mirrored the character's technical focus amid more martial personalities. These alignments were not accidental. Snyder and the casting team selected performers whose prior work or personal qualities suggested they could inhabit the required emotional registers. Subsequent collaboration refined the fits further, scale of the ensemble and narrative function, with dozens of credited performers and many more uncredited. The cast was sized to support a story that moves from intimate character moments to large scale set pieces involving hordes, vehicle chases, and multi location action. Principal players carry the emotional and plot through lines. Supporting players fill out the world, provide victims and obstacles, and occasionally deliver memorable individual beats. The zombie tiger sequence, the alpha court, the camp interactions. The hierarchy of roles is clear, yet even smaller parts receive specific casting attention rather than generic background treatment. This approach mirrors classic heist film structure, in which each team member possesses a specialized skill and a distinct personality, while expanding it into a post apocalyptic framework that requires additional world building personnel. Final observations on execution. The finished film demonstrates that the casting choices largely succeeded in creating a memorable and functional ensemble. Individual performances stand out without overwhelming the collective. The digital integration of Notaro, while imperfect in places according to some observers, remains a technical achievement and an ethical statement. Bautista's lead turn advances his career while serving the story. The diversity feels organic rather than imposed. Physical and emotional preparation paid off in credible action and affecting character moments. The process itself, long development, personal outreach to key actors, willingness to reassign roles, ethical mid course correction, intensive shared training, and collaborative refinement illustrates a modern large scale production that balances artistic vision, practical constraints, and human considerations. The result is a cast that feels assembled for the specific demands of a zombie heist set in a ruined Las Vegas rather than a generic collection of available talent. Each major performer contributes a necessary ingredient: physical power, emotional depth, technical skill, humor, moral ambiguity, international texture, or specialized combat ability. Together, they form the human core that makes the spectacle matter. Production development and pre production, the road that eventually led to Zack Snyder's zombie heist spectacle Army of the Dead, began nearly a decade and a half before the film ever reached audiences. And its origin story is almost as chaotic as the movie itself. The project traces back to March 2007 when Warner Bros. Pictures publicly confirmed it would move forward with a zombie feature built from a story idea credited to Snyder with a screenplay penned by Joby Harold. At the time, Snyder framed the project as a spiritual cousin to two of his earlier works, his 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead and his 2007 Sword and Sandal epic 300. He described a narrative centered on a father in Las Vegas, desperately trying to keep his daughter alive amid a zombie ravaged world, a kernel of an idea that, remarkably, would still be recognizable in the finished film released 14 years later. Producer Wesley Collar was attached as an executive producer during this early phase, while Snyder and his wife and creative partner, Deborah Snyder, were set to produce through their banner Cruel and Unusual Films, the company that would later be rebranded as the Stone Quarry. It is worth underscoring that Snyder has always been careful to describe Army of the Dead as a spiritual successor rather than a direct sequel to Dawn of the Dead. The distinction matters to understanding how the project germinated. According to Snyder, the concept actually took shape while he was still in the trenches of making Dawn of the Dead. Partway through that production, he began imagining a different, expanded mythology for the undead, one that would require an entirely new origin story and a fresh interpretation of what a zombie could be, rather than simply reusing the fast running infected ghouls from his remake. He landed on the title Army of the Dead specifically as a nod to George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead series, positioning his new project as an homage to the lineage of zombie cinema that Romero had pioneered decades earlier. In interviews reflecting on this period, Snyder pushed back on any suggestion that the film was a piece of committee driven studio product, insisting instead that it was incredibly personal and singular, a movie he wanted to make on his own terms rather than one shaped by a boardroom of executives. The first real sign of forward motion came in June 2008 when Dutch commercial director and visual artist Matthijs van Heiningen Jr. signed on to direct what would have been his feature filmmaking debut. Van Heiningen would go on to direct The Thing prequel a few years later, but Army of the Dead was intended to be his first major feature at the helm. For a while, it looked as though the zombie heist picture might actually make it to cameras under his direction. That optimism did not last. By October 2011, Van Heiningen was speaking publicly about a project that had stalled out, revealing that the film had been shelved just 3 months before it was scheduled to begin principal photography. The culprit, according to Van Heiningen, was the fallout from the 2008 financial crisis, which made Warner Brothers increasingly cautious about greenlighting an expensive genre picture with an uncertain box office ceiling. Van Heiningen's interviews from this period also offer a fascinating glimpse into just how different the earlier incarnation of the film might have been. He described a version of the story that would have included scenes depicting male zombies sexually assaulting human women, resulting in hybrid zombie human offspring, a considerably darker and more transgressive direction than anything that ultimately made it into Snyder's 2021 film. This detail illustrates how substantially the project's tone shifted over the many years it spent bouncing between different creative hands and different corporate owners. By February 2012, Van Heiningen offered a further update, telling press that Warner Brothers intended to cancel the project outright, largely because of how expensive it would be to stage a full scale zombie apocalypse on location in Las Vegas. Filming a large scale genre film amid the casinos, hotels, and tourist infrastructure of the Las Vegas Strip presented enormous logistical and financial challenges, and the studio apparently balked at footing that bill for a genre film without a built in franchise pedigree. Following this apparent cancellation, another attempt was made to resuscitate the project through Legendary Entertainment, the production company known for handling large effects driven blockbusters. But that effort also failed to bring the film to fruition. The project's fortunes changed dramatically in January 2019 when Netflix stepped in and acquired the distribution rights. By this point, the concept had evolved considerably from its earlier iterations, now being pitched specifically as a zombie heist film, blending the survival horror elements of the earlier drafts with the Ocean's 11 style caper structure. Snyder was attached to direct, and Netflix reportedly committed a substantial $90 million production budget to the effort, with filming slated to start that same year. The Hollywood Reporter broke the news of the deal, and Snyder used the moment to describe his enthusiasm for finally getting the long gestating project off the ground, calling it a good palate cleanser to really dig in with both hands and make something fun and epic and crazy and bonkers in the best possible way. He drew a contrast between his more reverent, canon conscious work on prior franchise films and the creative freedom this project offered him, saying he saw it as an opportunity to find a purely joyful way to express myself through a genre. Because Harold's original screenplay had been written years earlier with a different director, a different budget, and a different corporate owner in mind, Snyder opted not to simply dust off the old script. Instead, he undertook a substantial rewrite in collaboration with screenwriter Shay Hatten, reshaping the material into the version of the story that eventually reached the screen. Snyder has spoken candidly about the difference between working with Warner Bros. On his earlier tentpole films and working with Netflix on this project. He characterized his previous studio relationship as one marked by strict creative parameters and recurring budget disputes, whereas Netflix, in his telling, granted him considerably more latitude to pursue his own vision. He recounted a specific anecdote from a development meeting in which he mentioned several screenplays he had been quietly working on, including the long dormant Army of the Dead concept. According to Snyder, Netflix's head of original films, Scott Stuber, responded with an enthusiasm bordering on urgency, telling him, "Go write that movie and let's make it. Go write it tomorrow and we'll shoot it in a week." That anecdote, whether taken literally or as a bit of Hollywood embellishment, captures the tenor of the Netflix era of the project. Fast moving, comparatively low friction, and driven by directorial enthusiasm rather than protracted studio deliberation. With a script and a distributor finally locked in, casting began in earnest in the spring of 2019. Dave Bautista was announced as the lead in April of that year, at which point the production budget was being reported at a somewhat lower figure of $70 million, down from the earlier $90 million estimate. Though sources on the exact budget have varied, Bautista's involvement is one of the more colorful footnotes in the film's casting history. By his own account, his gut reaction to the offer was an immediate no. At the time, he was actively pursuing more dramatic roles and was wary of being typecast in another straightforward action vehicle. What changed his mind, he has said, was the opportunity to collaborate with Snyder specifically, combined with his positive reaction after actually reading the screenplay. The decision, however, came at a professional cost. Bautista had to choose between Army of the Dead and a supporting part in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Speaking to Digital Spy, Bautista laid out his reasoning in blunt terms. Noting that the Gunn project offered him the chance to reunite with a filmmaker he considered a friend, but only in a comparatively smaller role, whereas Army of the Dead offered a leading role, a new working relationship with Netflix, and, in his words, considerably more money. He described the call he made to Gunn to break the news as heartbreaking on a personal level, but the clear professionally sound choice. The month after Bautista's casting was announced, four more principal cast members joined the production: Ella Purnell, Ana de la Reguera, Theo Rossi, and Huma Qureshi, all confirmed alongside character descriptions that gave the press its first real sense of the ensemble's shape. Purnell was set to play Kate Ward, the estranged daughter of Bautista's character, a detail that mapped directly onto the father daughter dynamic Snyder had described as far back as the 2007 Warner Brothers announcement. The following month, in July 2019, the rest of the ensemble was locked into place. Omari Hartwig, Chris D'Elia, Hiroyuki Sanada, Raul Castillo, Nora Arnezeder, Matthias Schweighöfer, Samantha Wynn, and stunt performer Richard Cetron, who would portray the alpha zombie leader Zeus, were all announced together as part of the film's rounded out cast. Several cast members later discussed in press interviews conducted around the film's 2021 release what drew them to the project in the first place. Ana de la Reguera explained that she was won over by the screenplay itself, noting that compared to other entries in the zombie genre, this particular story was, in her words, fundamentally always about love. An observation that speaks to the surprisingly sentimental father daughter and found family through lines Snyder wove into the carnage. Omari Hardwick cited his admiration for Snyder's distinctive visual style as his primary motivation for signing on. Nora Arnezeder, who plays the smuggler guide character Lily, praised the script for its genre blending qualities, describing it as a zombie movie with a lot of poetry and a lot of different genres, adding that it moved fluidly between comedy and thriller beats while still feeling cohesive. Matthias Schweighöfer, meanwhile, said he was drawn both by the prospect of working with Snyder and by the appeal of playing a German character written with genuine depth, humor, and a distinct point of view, a marked departure from many one dimensional foreign accented stock characters common in Hollywood action films. Before cameras rolled, the cast underwent what production materials referred to as zombie boot camp, an intensive preparatory program in which the actors trained in firearm handling and practiced coordinated group movement and combat choreography meant to sell the illusion of a seasoned mercenary unit. Interestingly, this training sometimes ran in reverse for certain actors. Schweighöfer, cast as Ludwig Dieter, a safecracker whose character is meant to be visibly inexperienced and awkward with a gun, actually arrived on set already knowledgeable about firearms use. Rather than teaching him marksmanship, the production instead had to coach him on how to convincingly look unskilled and fumbling on camera. A small but telling example of how much attention Snyder's team paid to character specific physical performance. Looking at the full arc of the project's development history, it is striking how much the surrounding industry landscape shifted underneath Army of the Dead over the years it spent in limbo. When the film was first announced in 2007, streaming video was barely a factor in the entertainment business. Netflix at that point was still primarily known as a DVD by mail rental service, years away from launching its own original programming. By the time the project finally found a home with Netflix in 2019, the entire structure of the film and television industry had been transformed by the rise of subscription streaming, and Netflix itself had become one of the most aggressive commissioners of original film content in the world, willing to bankroll big swing genre projects that traditional studios, wary of theatrical risk, might have continued to pass on. In some sense, Army of the Dead stands as a case study in how a mid budget genre concept that could not find traction within the risk averse theatrical studio system of the early 2010s eventually found a natural home within the different economic logic of the streaming era, where subscriber engagement and library value matter more than any single film's opening weekend box office performance. It is also worth noting how the project's premise evolved across its various false starts. The earliest Warner Bros. Era version of the story, as described by Snyder in 2007, centered more narrowly on a father attempting to rescue his daughter from a zombie infested Las Vegas. By the time Netflix picked the project back up in 2019, that father daughter dynamic remained a core emotional through line, embodied in the relationship between Bautista's Scott Ward and Purnell's Kate Ward, but it had been substantially reframed within a much more elaborate heist movie structure, complete with a large ensemble of mercenary specialists, a countdown driven vault cracking plot, and a shadowy corporate villain pulling strings behind the scenes. This shift toward an ensemble caper format likely reflects both changing genre trends over the intervening decade, particularly the enduring popularity of heist films built around colorful specialist characters and Snyder's own evolving interests as a filmmaker following his extended run directing large ensemble superhero pictures for Warner Brothers DC Films, Slate, one additional, lighter piece of pre production and filming. Trivia involves Snyder's own cameo appearance in the finished film. He can be glimpsed for roughly a second, reflected in a mirror while holding a camera, an unplanned artifact of his hands on role as the film's own cinematographer. According to Snyder, the production initially considered removing the accidental cameo during editing, but he ultimately decided to leave it in, reportedly telling his team it was good as it stood. Filming principal photography on Army of the Dead began on July 15, 2019, with the production first setting up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. New Mexico has over the past 2 decades, become an increasingly popular hub for Hollywood productions thanks to generous state tax incentives and a well developed local production infrastructure. And Snyder's team took full advantage of that ecosystem. The following month, in August 2019, filming moved into Albuquerque Studios, a purpose built soundstage facility that allowed the production to construct and control many of the film's more elaborate interior sets, including portions of the casino environments central to the film's heist plot. By September 2019, the production had relocated across the country to Atlantic City, New Jersey, a location that proved crucial for the film's Las Vegas set casino sequences, despite the geographic mismatch. Rather than filming inside functioning casinos in an active resort destination, which would have been logistically near impossible, given the disruption a large action production would cause. Snyder's team instead used two shuttered Atlantic City properties, the Atlantic Club Casino Hotel and the Showboat Atlantic City, both of which had ceased operations back in 2014. These abandoned but still largely intact casino buildings gave the production a rare opportunity: real, full scale casino architecture, including gaming floors, hotel corridors, and backstage cash handling areas that could be redressed, damaged, and populated with zombie extras without the constraints of an operating business. According to the New Jersey Motion Picture and Television Commission, roughly $25 million dollars of the film's overall budget was funneled specifically into the Atlantic City leg of the shoot, reflecting just how significant this location work was to the production's overall footprint and to the local economy, which had been eager to attract high profile film work to help offset the economic blow of the casino's earlier closures. Beyond Albuquerque and Atlantic City, additional filming took place in Las Vegas, Nevada itself, presumably for exterior establishing shots, aerial photography, and location specific texture that could not be replicated on a soundstage or in a stand in city, as well as in Los Angeles, California, likely covering additional interior work, pickup shots, and other supplementary material. The decision to build much of the film's Las Vegas illusion out of New Mexico soundstages, an abandoned New Jersey casino resort, and supplementary Nevada and California location work is itself a fairly typical example of how modern large scale productions assemble a fictional geography out of pieces gathered from multiple real world locations, chosen less for strict geographic accuracy and more for a combination of financial incentives, available infrastructure, and the practical realities of what a production is and is not permitted to do in a given place. shooting extensively on a still functioning Las Vegas strip surrounded by working casinos, hotel guests, and heavy tourist foot traffic would have presented the production with a level of logistical difficulty and public disruption that few casino operators would ever agree to accommodate, particularly for a film built around scenes of a zombie overrun apocalypse playing out in and around their properties. The two shuttered Atlantic City casinos offered a practical workaround, genuine, full scale casino architecture that could be treated as an active filming location rather than a functioning business, allowing Snyder's crew to physically damage, redress, and repopulate the spaces with makeup effects, prosthetics, and background performers without concern for guest safety or ongoing hotel operations. This kind of location substitution also had a secondary economic dimension. New Jersey, like New Mexico, has actively competed for film and television productions through state level tax incentive programs designed to draw Hollywood dollars into local economies, and the roughly $25 million spent specifically within Atlantic City represented a meaningful infusion of production spending into a city whose casino industry had been contracting for years prior to the shoot, culminating in the closures of properties, including the Atlantic Club and the Showboat back in 2014. Local press coverage from the period, including reporting from NJ.com and the press of Atlantic City, tracked the production's movement through the city with considerable local interest, treating the arrival of a major Netflix backed Zack Snyder directed production as a notable economic and cultural event for a city eager to diversify its identity beyond its struggling casino sector. One of the more technically distinctive aspects of the production was Snyder's decision to serve as his own cinematographer or director of photography, a role he had not previously occupied on any of his prior feature films. This also marked his first time shooting an entire feature using digital cameras rather than traditional film stock. To achieve the specific visual texture he wanted, Snyder partnered with Red Digital Cinema, the camera manufacturer, which built him a set of custom modified Red Monstro cameras. These cameras were specifically engineered to accommodate a set of vintage 1960s Canon 50mm f.95 rangefinder lenses, extremely fast, extremely rare optics that Snyder had personally sourced through eBay auctions. The pairing of ultra modern digital sensor technology with decades old analog glass produced a very particular look, a soft, often heavily out of focus image with pronounced shallow depth of field, which Snyder described as giving the film dreamlike, out of focus imagery and a soft, organic look. This aesthetic choice would later become a point of some controversy among viewers once the film reached its streaming audience, a topic addressed further in the reception section below. The commitment to this visual approach extended to how Snyder handled even the film's opening sequence. According to a Netflix press release detailing behind the scenes information about the production, the prologue sequence alone took 5 weeks to shoot, an unusually long span for what amounts to a single stretch of screen time, because Snyder insisted on capturing it using natural light rather than artificial lighting rigs, requiring the crew to work within narrow windows of appropriate daylight conditions. Bautista, in press interviews conducted around the film's release, offered a vivid account of what it was like being directed by a filmmaker who was simultaneously operating the camera. He described Snyder as extremely hands on in his cinematography, frequently shooting scenes from a wide variety of angles and accumulating hours of footage that went well beyond dialogue coverage, including extended stretches focused purely on actors' facial expressions and reactions. Bautista also noted that Snyder would sometimes wander off from the planned shortlist entirely, essentially following his own instincts in the moment and start filming whatever he wants, a description that paints a picture of a director working in an unusually improvisational, exploratory mode, even within the structure of a large scale genre production. The production's momentum was significantly disrupted, roughly a year after principal photography had wrapped. In August 2020, it was announced that cast member Chris D'Elia would be removed from the finished film entirely, following a wave of sexual misconduct allegations made against him. Delia had been part of the ensemble cast announced back in July 2019, and his removal, more than a year after shooting had concluded, represented an unusually late stage and costly production challenge. Tig Notaro was brought in to replace him in the role of helicopter pilot Marianne Peters. Because the COVID 19 pandemic was in full swing by the time Notaro's replacement reshoots were organized, the production had to adapt its usual filmmaking methods substantially. Notaro filmed her scenes that September, working across a compressed 14-day shooting schedule opposite an acting partner, using green screen technology so that her performance could later be composited into the pre existing footage and environments that had already been shot with Delia the previous year. Of the film's full ensemble cast, only Ana de la Reguera returned to participate directly in these reshoots, filming two scenes opposite Notaro over the course of roughly half a day. Following the completion of these reshoots, Notaro's performance was digitally integrated into the finished film through extensive use of computer generated imagery, allowing her scenes to appear as though they had been shot on location alongside the rest of the cast, despite having been filmed separately more than a year later under pandemic era restrictions. Reflecting on the recasting decision afterward, Snyder characterized the choice to replace Delia as fairly easy from a creative and moral standpoint, but he was candid that it came with a significant financial cost, estimating that the reshoot and VFX integration process added a few $1 million to the overall production budget. By March 2021, several months after the Dahlia reshoots had wrapped, Snyder publicly confirmed that all remaining work on the film had been completed, clearing the way for the marketing and release campaign to begin in earnest. Visual effects on the production were overseen by VFX supervisor Marcus Tormina, and one of the more elaborate practical challenges his team faced involved capturing usable aerial photography of the actual Las Vegas Strip for use in establishing shots and background plates. Because the production needed to depict a fictionalized, walled off, zombie infested version of the Strip, Taormina's team wanted real reference photography and footage of the actual skyline and streetscape. However, the various casino owners along the strip were unwilling to grant the production access to their properties or rooftops, presumably wary of associating their real world brands and buildings with a gory zombie film. Undeterred, Tormina and a team of roughly a dozen VFX still photographers spent 12 days capturing what they needed through alternative means, using scissor lifts positioned at street level, drone photography, and a high resolution Phase 1 medium format camera mounted to a helicopter for aerial passes. This imagery was then used to construct a full three-dimensional digital model of the Las Vegas Strip area using LiDAR scanning technology, a laser based surveying method capable of capturing precise spatial data about buildings and terrain. This digital environment was subsequently integrated into both the live action filming process and the post production visual effects pipeline, allowing the filmmakers to create a convincing quarantine walled version of Las Vegas without ever needing direct cooperation from the strip's casino operators. Among the film's more unusual visual effects creations was Valentine, the zombified tiger that appears as one of the film's more memorable set piece threats. To design a creature that would feel grounded in the anatomy and movement of a real big cat rather than a purely fantastical monster, the VFX team consulted with big cat rights activist Carol Baskin, notably months before she would become a household name following the release of Netflix's own true crime documentary series Tiger King. As part of this research process, the team visited Big Cat Rescue, an animal sanctuary located in Tampa, Florida, where they used a resident white tiger named Sapphire as a physical and behavioral reference point for designing Valentine's appearance and movement within the film. Post production. Much of the film's post production timeline overlapped directly with the reshoot and recasting process described above, given that Notaro's integration into the finished picture required extensive digital compositing work carried out well after the original 2019 shoot had concluded, as noted. Snyder confirmed in March 2021 that all post production work, including the VFX heavy task of blending Notaro's green screen performance into scenes originally filmed with Delia more than a year earlier had been completed, allowing the film to move into its final marketing push ahead of its scheduled release date that May. The post production period was also when the film's distinctive visual signature, born from Snyder's custom camera and lens combination, was finalized across the picture's full runtime. This soft focus, dreamlike photographic style, discussed above in the filming section, would go on to generate some unexpected controversy once the film reached streaming audiences, with some viewers initially mistaking the intentional optical softness and shallow focus for a technical defect, a topic explored in more detail in the reception section of this article. The overall post production window for Army of the Dead stretched across an unusually long and disrupted timeline by the standards of a conventional feature film. Principal photography wrapped in 2019, but the need to fold in the Delia to Notaro recasting the following year, itself complicated by pandemic era restrictions on cast and crew gatherings, meant that the film's editors, colorists, and visual effects artists were still actively working on the finished cut well into early 2021, mere months before its scheduled theatrical and streaming release. This compressed final stretch of post production work, layered atop an already effects heavy film that required extensive digital environment work for its Las Vegas strip sequences and its various zombie creature designs, meant that the film's finishing crews were operating under considerable time pressure in the months leading up to release. Snyder's confirmation in March 2021 that the film had finally been completed came only about 2 months before its May premiere, underscoring just how tight that final post production window really was. Music the film's score was composed by Dutch musician Tom Holkenborg, professionally known by his stage name Junkie XL, a composer with an extensive background in high energy, electronics driven scores for large scale action and superhero films. Holkenborg confirmed his involvement with the project publicly during a Reddit Ask Me Anything session in May 2020, well before the film's eventual release, giving fans an early signal of the sonic direction the project might take given his back catalog. According to Holkenborg, Snyder gave him a fairly specific creative brief for the score, instructing him to make the music modern, to make it unworldly, and to make it as emotional as you can with soft, dark, underlining, haunting elements. Working from that direction, Holkenborg said he built what he described as a totally electronic score, one he characterized as being packed with adrenaline pumping music designed to match the film's frenetic, high stakes, heist under siege structure. Holkenborg has indicated that Snyder responded positively to the finished score once it was delivered. The official soundtrack album, compiling Holkenborg's original score, was released by Milan Records on May 21, 2021, timed to coincide with the film's full digital debut on Netflix that same day. Beyond Holkenborg's original compositions, the soundtrack also notably features a rendition of the Elvis Presley classic Viva Las Vegas, fitting given the film's Sin City setting. Rather than using the original Presley recording, however, the version included on the soundtrack is a cover performed by lounge parody musician Richard Cheese, together with vocalist Alison Crow, giving the needle drop moment a slightly off kilter, ironic quality consistent with some of the film's darkly comedic tonal choices elsewhere. Beyond the score itself, music also played a notable role in the film's marketing campaign. When Netflix released the official 3-minute theatrical style trailer for the film on April 13th, 2021, the marketing team opted to set much of the footage to Kenny Rogers' classic recording of The Gambler, a song thematically well suited to a heist film set in a casino soaked Las Vegas, but also carrying a certain eerie undertone once paired with imagery of zombie carnage. That musical choice drew a range of reactions from entertainment press, covering the trailer's debut, some finding the pairing effectively unsettling, and others simply enjoying the tonal juxtaposition it created. Holkenborg's involvement in the project fits within a broader pattern in his career of collaborating with directors on large scale, effects driven action films that call for a score capable of sustaining relentless forward momentum across extended set pieces. His approach to Army of the Dead built around a fully electronic instrumental palette rather than a traditional orchestral one, aligns with Snyder's stated desire for music that felt unworldly rather than classically heroic or old fashioned, reinforcing the film's identity as a genre mashup that borrows from horror, heist thrillers, and post apocalyptic science fiction all at once rather than settling into any single traditional cinematic mode. The choice to lean into electronic textures rather than a more conventional horror score palette of strings and brass also helped distinguish the film's sound from that of more traditional zombie films, including Snyder's own earlier Dawn of the Dead, reinforcing the sense that this newer project was meant to feel like a distinct, updated take on undead apocalypse storytelling rather than a simple retread of familiar genre conventions. Really theatrical, even though Army of the Dead was fundamentally conceived and financed as a Netflix streaming original. The film nonetheless received a limited theatrical rollout ahead of its digital premiere, a release strategy Netflix had begun experimenting with more frequently for select high profile original films during this period. The film opened in theaters across the United States on May 14, 2021, playing in approximately 600 locations for a 1 week engagement. Significantly, this release included 330 screens operated by Cinemark, one of the largest theater chains in the country, marking the first time a Netflix original film had received a wide release specifically through a major theater chain of that scale. Cinemark's willingness to book the film followed on the heels of a handful of earlier, smaller Netflix theatrical experiments, including releases for The Midnight Sky, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and The Christmas Chronicles 2, each of which had tested different levels of theater chain cooperation with the streaming giant. Army of the Dead Cinemark deal represented a notable escalation in that ongoing cautious rapprochement between Netflix and traditional exhibition. Following this 1 week theatrical run, the film transitioned to its intended home on the Netflix streaming platform, becoming available to subscribers worldwide on May 21, 2021. Alongside the feature film itself, Netflix also released a companion making of documentary titled Creating an Army of the Dead on that same date, giving audiences an additional behind the scenes look at the production immediately upon the film's digital debut. The marketing rollout that preceded these release dates was extensive and multi pronged, reflecting Netflix's evident confidence in the project as a potential audience draw. The campaign effectively began on January 6, 2021, when the company released a set of exclusive first look images from the film to entertainment press, accompanied by Snyder's own colorful description of the project as a full blown balls to the wall zombie heist movie. The following month, in February 2021, Netflix released an official promotional poster along with a fuller set of images introducing the ensemble cast to the public. Around this same period, the film's R rating from the Motion Picture Association became public knowledge, a detail that outlets covering the genre space, including the film site, Film noted with evident enthusiasm, expressing interest in seeing Snyder return to unrestrained horror filmmaking after years working within the more restrictive confines of major franchise blockbusters. The first proper trailer, a teaser, arrived on February 25, 2021. Deadline Hollywood's coverage of the teaser described it as epic in scope, with the outlet drawing a comparison between the film's large ensemble cast structure and that of the 2001 heist classic Ocean's 11. Collider's response to the same teaser was somewhat more mixed in tone. The outlet found the footage itself fairly brief and somewhat vague in terms of concrete plot details, but nonetheless expressed enthusiasm for the film's prospects, writing approvingly that Snyder thrives in big, loud, glorious nonsense and that the footage suggested Army of the Dead might represent the peak of big, loud, glorious nonsense. That April, the marketing campaign escalated further with the release of 15 additional promotional posters, which press coverage noted for their vibrant, neon lit color palette, a stylistic choice clearly intended to evoke the visual iconography of the Las Vegas Strip itself, while also signaling the film's blend of action, humor, and visual spectacle. The second and more substantial trailer, running roughly 3 minutes, debuted on April 13, 2021, featuring Kenny Rogers' recording of The Gambler as its musical backdrop, as discussed above in the music section. Coverage of this trailer's release was broadly enthusiastic across entertainment outlets. Ben Pearson, writing for film, characterized the footage as evidence that Snyder was completely unleashed on the project, free to pursue an absolutely insane looking heist story, drawing a comparison to the 2016 crime drama Hell or High Water and predicting the finished film would deliver a total blast. The marketing campaign also extended into an unexpected corner of the entertainment industry, professional wrestling. Because star Dave Bautista built his early career as a professional wrestler for WWE prior to transitioning into acting, the company arranged a promotional tie in timed to its WrestleMania Backlash pay per view event, which aired on May 16, 2021, just days after the film's theatrical debut and shortly before its full streaming release. Bautista contributed a voice-over segment for the broadcast opening vignette, and a more elaborate tie-in was built into one of the evening's actual wrestling matches. Wrestlers Damian Priest and The Miz competed in a lumberjack match, a match format in which additional wrestlers surround the ring as lumberjacks tasked with keeping the competitors from escaping the ring area. For this particular broadcast, the surrounding lumberjacks were dressed and presented as zombies in keeping with the film's promotional theme, and the arena's LED screens displayed post apocalyptic cityscape imagery throughout the segment. WWE reportedly received $1 million in exchange for facilitating this promotional tie in. However, the segment did not land well with fans or critics. The match's conclusion, in which The Miz appeared to be devoured alive by the surrounding zombie dressed lumberjacks, drew significant criticism, with the New York Post going so far as to describe it as one of WWE's saddest moments ever.